Welcome to our TV network, your ultimate destination for all things exciting and essential. From mouth-watering food to the latest in fashion, health, education, music, movies, and news, plus thrilling sports and breathtaking travel. Our TV network brings it all to you. Tune in today and experience the best of every world, all in one place, RTV.network.
Hello, and welcome to Connect Caribbean Report, a world of trade, movement of people, and cultural exchange here on Callaloo Alliance Media, our TV network. We're back with another exciting episode lined up just for you, and today we are turning the attention to an issue that is crucial for regional trade, e-commerce, remittances, and other economic activities here in the Caribbean. We'll be focusing on cross-border payment settlements and associated challenges experienced here in the Caribbean. My co-host, Ambassador Dr. Andre Thomas of Cleon Group, John Cadenin of the IC Group, Chris Principe, publisher of the Financial IT, our guest contributor, Barbados' Special Envoy to Suriname and Guyana, Alfio Wiggins, together with my guest, Kieran Rose. He's a digital strategist, among other hats he wears, will put forward their perspective and some solutions as what they believe needs to happen to bring the Caribbean into the rapidly moving and changing digital age. I'm Jennifer Hyland, your host here on Connect Caribbean Report, where we're bridging the islands, uniting communities, and unlocking new possibilities for the entire region. So stay tuned as we dive into the stories and innovations that are shaping the Caribbean's bright future. This is your front row seat to the next wave of regional transformation, and we are covering here on Connect Caribbean Report. We'll be right back with Ambassador Thomas and Special Envoy Alfia in Connect Caribbean Report right after these messages.
Reimagine a world where the Caribbean is seamlessly connected, where our people, our cultures, and our economies move freely across the islands. This is Connect Caribbean, more than a ferry service. It's the heartbeat of a new era, an era where economic opportunities expand, where trade flows freely across our seas, and cultural exchange flourishes. We are linking businesses, empowering communities, and reigniting the hope for a truly integrated Caribbean. Together, we're shaping a brighter, more unified future for the Caribbean. Connect Caribbean, connecting our islands, our people, our future.
Welcome back to Connect Caribbean, and I'm very excited to have with me the one and only Ambassador Alfia Wiggins. She's a dynamic woman and who is making things happen in the region. She's a bundle of enthusiasm and passion. Great to have you with us, Ambassador Alfia.
Thank you so much for that wonderful welcome, Ambassador Dr. Thomas.
Excellent. Now, I want us to talk about this major issue of cross-border payment settlements. Now, I know that you are not only an advocate, you are a facilitator and a conduit of trade between Suriname, Guyana, Barbados, and Brazil. Now, there are four different currencies there. And so, definitely, you understand where the issues are. So, I want you to help us understand and help the audience understand, why do we need a payment settlement solution in the region? And how does this affect trade within the region from your experience?
Thank you so very much, Dr. Thomas, for that interesting question. We certainly do need payment settlement solutions within the Caribbean. I think you would recall the Connect Caribs launch at the Lloyd Erskine Sanford Center here in Barbados. We would have done a live transfer of payment. I believe it was going between St. Vincent and Trinidad using the CaribCoin platform. I would since have spoken to the principals involved and followed up with them to find out if there has been an uptake in using their platform to make payments within the region. The response was that there has been some uptake, but not a lot, because people within the Caribbean region, they're still doing their payments the old-fashioned way. So, for an example, if you want to pay Guyana, you pay in US dollars, you apply to the central bank here, saying that you're paying for bananas or oranges coming in from Guyana, Suriname, or wherever, and that most persons are still using the old fashioned way. And I do believe that that is happening because the trust has to be built up between the countries and between the platforms that are being used. And that trust is due primarily to the fact that, as you can see, there are a number of security breaches that are going on within the region. And because of these security breaches, people think that their money would be unsafe where they're resting with these fintech platforms. So, for the moment, I would say to you that a lot of people are still using the old fashioned way of applying to the central banks and making their payments. There are some digital solutions within the region, within Trinidad and Jamaica, and so on within CARICOM. But as I said, there are not a lot of customers that are using these payments. So I would think that going forward, a lot of times that it is education that is needed within the region and educating our constituents within the region how these platforms work. And as I was saying earlier, in terms of like Barbados, persons would have to have, let's say, a US dollar account, both the customer as well as the supplier having a US dollar account where you can simply transfer money from one account to another. But then you have to look at how it is viewed from a US point of view then. Is this money laundering that these people are getting involved in? So there are a lot of technical, ethical, and financial considerations that are involved in using these financial technical solutions to solve problems and to essentially pay bills.
Thank you so much for that comprehensive 360 view of this. I mean, from my experience, right now we are building an e-commerce platform that's going to work alongside with Connect Caribbean Ferry Service. And one of the mountains that we have to navigate is real payment settlements. Um, Now we are working on two different solutions. But from your experience, how does it affect trade in the region? The fact that, say, example, um, now one of our largest constituents that has buying power in the region will be Trinidad. So, example, if you're having goods coming out of Barbados and you have citizens in Trinidad that have purchasing power, but they don't have access to US dollars, then that really affects the level of trade that can occur even with an e-commerce platform. So, I mean, so for us, finding solutions to this is very important, and I believe there are solutions. And but from your perspective, what is the impact on trade? Because here's the thing I have realized: people change for two reasons. Generally, people change because they're hungry for more, or people change because of pain. So where we're in the Caribbean, pain or hunger?
I would say that in terms of the payment system that is currently existing in the Caribbean, it is
Yes.
not really affecting trade at all
Mm.
because traditionally people are still going with tradition, as I said, and they're paying in US currency, meaning, to repeat myself, that they would apply to the central bank to pay the
Yes.
standing invoices, and
Yes.
those standing invoices would be paid in US dollars. So there is no problem there in terms of payments.
Yes.
However, if you want to transfer money via some of the other services, let's say like Western Union, PayPal, etc., you these attract fees. So it means that you're paying the invoice plus the fee that you have to pay Western Union, PayPal. So the goods become more expensive from that perspective. That is why having these digital solutions, the digital currencies, is in fact an excellent way to go in terms of payments. But as I said, that needs a lot of trust and a lot of build up before
Absolutely.
people can eventually trust these solutions so that they would not lose their money. Because that is effectively what can happen. People can lose all the monies that they have invested in these digital currencies because you can see watching the international news where persons are being arrested who run these type of companies, and persons are literally robbed of their funds. So there's not that element of trust within the Caribbean in terms of these digital payments. We are sticking to the old-fashioned way for the time being, and that's the safest thing to do.
Okay, I hear exactly what you're saying because what you have shared is really a perspective that there is. And what I find, even as we round up this segment, is that in order for us to broaden and bring more people, particularly small entrepreneurs, in to say an e-commerce platform, having them have access to payment solutions that they can be cross-border payment solutions will be game changing for them. At the high level, where you're dealing with conglomerates, mid-sized companies, the current structure works. It can be enhanced, but it works. I mean, if I need to purchase something, I just go to the central bank and get my foreign exchange and do what I need to do. I have US accounts. However, for the smaller person who perhaps needs to be moving product across the region, these payment solutions will be game changer for them. And I'm looking forward to discuss with our team and in this program and our next program, because our next program we're going to deal with fintech solutions, and we're just laying the groundwork for that. So thank you so much, Ambassador Alfie Wiggins. I believe you have laid out very comprehensively for us the current state of thinking concerning these fintech solutions and cross-border payment settlements and what needs to happen to be able to evolve into technologies that are used in other parts of the world very successfully. And thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
You are muted, Jennifer Highland. We cannot hear you. You are muted. We cannot hear you. Yes, we can hear you now. Okay, well, we will now go on to our break while we fix the problem that we have with Jennifer Highland. And so see you after our commercial break. Okay, thank you.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. United is recovering quickly from deep price cuts across the industry that we saw over the summer when seats were open. Reporting after the bell, United's earnings beat estimates, and the airline also authorized a $1.5 billion share buyback. Delta Airlines is sprucing up its airplane cabins. The colors are being changed from bright blue to navy and gray with subtle red accents. The company says it's using new seating materials as well and installing calmer lighting. The changes will debut on Boeing 757s later this fall, followed by wide-body Airbus A350s early next year. After months of tweaking the deal, NFL owners have voted to approve Tom Brady and Knighthead Capital Management co-founder Tom Wagner buying a 10% stake in the Las Vegas Raiders. Brady would be the only broadcaster who's part of an NFL team, and for that reason, certain restrictions were placed on his involvement with team activities. I'm Nancy Lyons, Bloomberg Radio.
Are you a political leader or aspire to be one? The Political Visionary is the ultimate guide for you. Unlock leadership wisdom that goes beyond politics. Cultivate a culturally intelligent model of governance, tailored to the needs of your town, city, or nation. This book equips you to create a safe and prosperous society with insights from history that ignite innovation. Motivational, principle-centered, and future-focused. The Political Visionary, authored by Ambassador Dr. Andre Thomas, is your blueprint for transformative leadership. Get your copy today, available on Amazon, and begin to lead the change.
This is the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. October can be a very good month to sign a contract to buy a home because usually it's the month where you see the greatest share of homes going under contract with the price cut, but it's not clear if that's going to be the case this year because buyer excitement about lower mortgage rates may be keeping demand high. Zillow says at this point it looks like nationwide home prices are up about 2.4% year on year, and currently about 25% of listings have price cuts, but it's a tougher market for buyers in some places. Home prices in Los Angeles are up more than 5% on the year, and only 21% of homes listed have price cuts. You might try in San Diego instead because it could be a little bit easier for home buyers there. Home prices are up about 5% year on year, but 27% of homes listed in San Diego had a price cut. Riverside could be a little bit easier. Homes there are sitting on the market just a little bit longer. And that's the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
Welcome back. I hope you can hear me now. Welcome back to Connect Caribbean Report. One segment that just gone, you heard from Ambassador Thomas and Barbados' special envoy to Guyana and Suriname, Althea Wiggins. But coming up right now, I have Chris Principe and John Clendenin, and they're going to be talking a little bit more on their perspective, the cross-border payment settlements, the factors, the challenges, the solutions, and we're looking forward to hearing their discussion on the solutions presented for this particular issue here in the Caribbean. So over to you, John and Chris. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and hosting this section of Connecting the Dots. And I guess by way of a segue, the complexities of the international trade, I wanted to put into a supply chain perspective. So the trade facilitation, when the goods go from supplier to customer and are focused on the transaction, there's also the going across the border. So when you have the trade documents and the data that's necessary for trade, those things have to be interoperable in what's largely known as UN Recommendation 33, a single windows initiative that tries to make all of these transactions electronic now, as opposed to the stamps that go on through the border. So when that happens, you have different INCO standards as far as the trade. So it's free on board or CIF and those trade documents. When the shipment goes across a border, then it has to, the shipper, let's say, has to make a payment. So that payment also has to go into the country's system. So what happens is you have the payment that goes from the supplier, the customer makes that purchase, but then along the way, depending on who's responsible, when you go through the border with the border police and phytosanitary and weights and measures, you then have to pay as you go through those different border crossings. So that exchange rate has to happen. The other complexity that I would add before turning over to my colleague Chris is that the currencies that we use, okay, are affected more and more now by inflation. So years ago, 40 years ago, inflation was rampant, and now we're seeing it raise its ugly head. So when the ambassador was talking about her notion with Brazil, back in the old days, we went from cruzeiros to cruzados to new cruzeiros, and the exchange rate was really important, not just that you owed certain money, but how you expatriated your money back out of that country was important. And then along with the exchange rate. So the different currencies come with different exchange rates. If you're using TT dollars or you're using euro or you're using US dollars, that's another important part that we have to figure out as we look at these integrated supply chains. Chris?
Yeah, John, thank you very much. And I just want to say that both ambassadors and yourself, John, have made some really excellent points on what I want to just talk about just for a brief second is how we kind of got into this. And one of the big reasons we have the issues with payments is that the international big banks have generally pulled out of the region. And they've pulled out based on what they call de-risking. So just to give you the mindset that the big banks have, is it's very simple for them. They look at everything as one bad transaction. So if they get hit with a transaction that's money laundering or trafficking or drugs, the fines that they could be imposed on them by the regulators out of the EU and especially out of the US are so large that it takes away any of the profit they would make in the region. So as a result, they stop doing business in the region and pull out.
Yeah, and then what Chris is speaking about is the banks, when they look at de-risking their profile, the size of the region is so small compared to other transactions. So if you look at the economy itself as a whole of a region, if you compare it to the United States, let's say, it's very small, maybe the size of Delaware. And so when they look at that de-risking that Chris talked about, it's not worth their time as far as the amount of the GDP that's being generated compared with the risk. So not only are they reluctant, they are actually pulling out of the region. So we've seen that in the St. Croix area and other places where the central banks are moving out. So the complexity of the transactions, if you will, have to do with the movement of money flow, the inflation, what the exchange rate is, what the country are, what happens with the central banks and their taking a risk or not taking a risk. That gets complicated as well when you go to the individual level. So when we talk about immigration and people, when they're looking at getting goods and services, so let's say in the United States, people with a Caribbean history want to bring in goods and services, doubles, for example, from Trinidad. when they look at those products that are now, where used to be you had to go to a country to get those products, now they're available in the United States. So when you're making that product available, the people also that are looking are trying to make that transaction. And so on an individual level, trying to send money back to one of the Caribbean nations or taking the money out also happens on an individual basis, because the individuals don't have banking relationships with a central bank. So we have all of the different things of transferring the money from PayPal to Venmo to other kinds of transactions. So Chris, are you there? So not seeing Chris. What I think is a useful way to go back, and what the ambassador was talking about on the segment with how the countries work with one another, those relationships between the countries are also affected by what the relationship is as a region or as an individual country. So for example, from a supply chain standpoint, the European Union works together. They have Schengen visas, and people can go between the countries, and it's ease to train. They have the ASEAN nations in the parts of the world that deal in Asia. And what we're looking to do is have a single Caribbean economy. And that's one of the things that the show is doing, is how do we connect the Caribbean? How do we connect it for trade, the peoples, and work on the legislation that will help with that? Ambassador?
Yeah, I think that, solutions gravitate to the problems that they fix. And I believe that this significant problem we have in the region that has created a big opportunity for a fintech company or number of fintech companies to solve. I believe value is created when you solve, great value is created when you solve complex problems. And there definitely is a solution for this. And I am very interested in, when we do our next show next week, to look at different types of fintech solutions that could possibly make a real dent in this particular area. Because you find the silver bullet, it's going to be game changing for the region and for individuals.
Yeah. And as the ambassador was talking about, when we look at things in a particular product basis, let's say rum. Rum is indigenous to all of the different Caribbean nations, and we pride ourselves with our rum. But the rum comes in different costs. It has different transfers. We are looking at how it's marketing. There's rum cover charges that get back in the different nations. And so we have to look at how do we transfer the integrated supply chain. Where do we get the molasses from, the sugar cane? How are we processing it? Where do we bottle it? Where is the law? Whereas if it's a product made in Barbados, but it's bottled in with a larger company like Diageo in Florida, how do you have the naming conventions of where is the rum oriented or originated? So these are some of the things, Jennifer, that we've talked about in this section that make it more and more interesting as we look at connecting the Caribbean.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Chris and Ambassador John and Ambassador. We hope to get Chris' perspective as a financial expert here on Connect Caribbean report. And definitely the position that we put forward, we really want to now look at the mindset and readying Caribbean businesses, entrepreneurs to accept, the perspective on the using digital currency and so forth, because it's important to also have that side aligned as well. And with that, we've got Rose coming up, Kevin Rose, and he's going to talk about his perspective. But that was connecting the dots with John Clendenin and Chris Principe, and we had Ambassador Dr. Thomas putting in his perspective there. But we'll be right back after these messages within the Spotlight.
With a Bloomberg Small Business Report, I'm John Tucker, sponsored by Chase for Business. Make more of what's yours. JP Morgan Chase Bank and a member FDIC. Expanding tax credits for employers that provide family-friendly benefits has emerged as a rare point of compromise on Capitol Hill. Members on both sides of the aisle propose boosting existing tax incentives to employers, providing paid parental and medical leave and child care benefits to their workers. While on the books for a few years, some of these tax breaks haven't been used to their full capacity and leave out many businesses. Tax policy will be at the top of the legislative agenda next year, regardless of how the November elections turn out. The U.S. has long lagged its sister industrialized nations in providing paid leave and child care, but as workers increasingly call out the need for policies that make family building more affordable, lawmakers are looking for ways to encourage employers to make these benefits widely available. And that's the Bloomberg Small Business.
How do nations rise to greatness, even in adversity? Leading nations into economic dignity reveals the leadership mindset behind national success. This isn't about formulas, it's about leadership. Discover the philosophy that can transform any nation, large or small, through strategic, creative, and reflective thinking. Written in an accessible wisdom style, this book expands mental paradigms, evoking new possibilities for national development to shape a prosperous future. Get your copy today, available on Amazon, and sculpt a future of national greatness.
Welcome back to Connect Caribbean Report, and we are here in the segment In the Spotlight. And in the Spotlight is where we chat with local, regional, and international guests to talk about relevant topics and gain insight from their experiences relative to the theme of the show. And so my guest today is Kieron Rose. Kieron Rose, you need to correct me if it's Kieron or Kieron, but we have Kieron Rose. He is a digital strategist, media personality, university lecturer, and news columnist who has spent years helping Caribbean businesses build their digital presence. And with a focus on digital marketing, e-commerce, among other disciplines. But after spending 10 years in Trinidad and Tobago, Kieron made the decision to move to Thailand to realign with his personal and professional goals. So this move came after years of working closely with Caribbean businesses, during which Kieron felt the need to expand his horizon, learn more about digital payments, e-commerce, online businesses practices in Asia, and leveraging remote work to explore and grow in new regions, while importantly bringing back valuable knowledge to uplift businesses in the Caribbean. Welcome, Kieron, to Connect Caribbean Report in the Spotlight. It's great to have you join us here on the program.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for having me.
You're certainly welcome. So let's jump right into it. You moved from Trinidad all the way to Asia. So I want to just give us a little of the background on the way, and then I have 3 critical questions for you. Hope we can get them in, but then we'll bring you back in Connected Voices. But why did you move from the Caribbean with the land of sun, sea, and sunshine and calypso and moved all the way to Thailand? What's the backstory there?
So this is effectively my 3rd country that I'm living in. So I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. We left when I was about 2 months old, and we moved to Canada. So I lived in Toronto for 28 years of my life. Right around that time, a lot of my friends started to move to different parts of the world to get into the fields that they wanted to get into. And because I'm a dual citizen, I was like, you know what? I was thinking of either moving to the western part of Canada or, just dusting off my old Trinidad passport and coming to the Caribbean. So I ended up doing that. And I thought I was going to be here for maybe like 6 months to a year, but all of my experience within telecoms and my love for technology, just the gateway of opportunity really opened up for me Caribbean wide during the 10 years in Trinidad. And coming down to the end of last year in 2023, I really felt like The Caribbean needs a lot of attention. We have a lot of problems, but this is a lot of opportunities for the right people that can solve it. And I knew that the region that's doing the most within e-commerce and digital wallets and digital payments is Asia. So I decided to make the move to Thailand, a place where the cost of living is low, but I'm in close proximity to Singapore, to China, where I can get a lot of information and knowledge and learn from them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure you had a lot of experience with the cross-border payment settlement systems and the challenges, but given your experience in helping Caribbean businesses build their digital presence, what do you think are the key barriers preventing the region from fully embracing cross-border payment settlement systems and solutions? And how can these, from your perspective, be overcome?
Oh boy, the number one challenge is education, right? So growing up in Canada, I often remind people that I got my first Visa debit card in 2003 when I was still in high school, right? And that Visa debit card allowed me to go online, shop on eBay, just shop online, right? And just do things digitally. In Trinidad and Tobago, we just got our Visa debit cards in 2020, 2022, right? Banks were still telling people up to the beginning of this year that, hey, you need to switch over from your MagStripe card to this new Visa debit card. So these things are new to the Caribbean people. Now, they shop online, they go on Amazon. The credit card penetration rate in Trinidad alone is very low. It's less than 15%, right? So there's only a certain amount of people that can make purchases online to begin with. And because we are in this foreign exchange crisis in Trinidad, most people don't even have the allocation of USD to really shop online. But you could do things, but I think that coming from Canada, where Canada focused so much on sensitizing the entire country. If you walk into the banks were teaching you about online banking, mobile banking. They were showing you how to use your Visa debit cards. When I used to work at Apple back in Canada, we would have workshops teaching people how to do digital banking as well from smartphones and their tablets. In the Caribbean, we don't have any institution whatsoever that's focused on educating the audience, or the public, I should say. So where are people supposed to get this level of comfort to just jump online and start to transact business or set up these technologies for their own business? Where are they going to get the information from?
Right. And I believe then that's why you have a lot of pushback with regard to what Ambassador Wiggins mentioned about the trust issue. But when you move to Thailand to expand your knowledge of digital payments and e-commerce, what lessons then, based on what you just said, have you learned from the Asian market that can help accelerate the adoption of cross-border payment settlements in the Caribbean and building that trust, as we've heard from our co-hosts previously?
Yeah, so I'll preface by saying this is my third week in Thailand, so I'm brand new, but within that 3 weeks, a lot has really just blown my mind open. One example, we have a vending machine called a Thao Bin machine in our condo, and it essentially makes your coffees, your teas. It's one machine that does a whole bunch of drinks. When you click on payment, it gives you options. Usually, a vending machine gives you two options, physical cash or coins, right? Yes. Bills or coins. This machine, it's taking over 20 different digital payments.
Wow.
So that 20 digital payments, and it still takes cash, bills, and it still takes coins, right? So nothing is 100% cashless, but you have options. Now, one of the things that really blew me away is that you have a high concentration of WePay. Mm-hmm. That is the AliExpress, and also the WeChat Pay from Asia, from China, right? These are two platforms, Alipay and WeChat Pay, that are accepted almost anywhere you go. So the fact that they're prioritizing digital payments, not just from local companies in Thailand, But the Asian region on the whole is saying we need to connect the entire region through payments. That way, when people are coming from China, they're coming in and they can easily make payments without having to worry about, is this country gonna accept my currency or whatnot? Payments is like the last problem they're thinking about.
Wonderful. Well, we've got 2 minutes left in this segment. I really want to get this question into you. Considering the challenges then that you face with the Caribbean and the move you've made to Thailand and the Caribbean mindset towards digital transformation, what role then does government and the private sector stakeholders should play in driving the adoption of more efficient and scalable cross-border payment solutions? You just list a litany of options there from your drink machine that your experience. But if you can quickly tell us, what do you think that the role of government and private sector stakeholders should play in driving the adoption of efficient, scalable cross-border payment solutions?
The government has to set the tone and create the right environment. Whenever I listen to our politicians, for the most part, I don't hear the things that inspire confidence. And because they don't say anything that inspires confidence, people would rather keep their money in their mattress. That way they know they can see it, they can touch it, and they can use it in the case of a jam. I'll give you an example. Our opposition leader in Trinidad just last week basically was using cashless society as a fear-mongering tactic, saying that if we were to go the route of cashless society, the government could just come in and shut down your accounts and you have no access to your money. How do you expect the Caribbean people to feel comfortable utilizing digital payments when there's still fear-mongering going on? And that's not the case, because we see all the examples of the rest of the world leveraging all of these tools to the benefit of the entire society.
We're going to talk about that some more in Connected Voices when we bring all of our co-hosts back in to really dive a little bit deeper in. So stay there, Kieran, don't leave. We want to have a little more conversation with you on that last point as well, and any other issue that the hosts want to present. So that was Kieran Rose. He's a digital strategist and he's a program advisor at the University of South Florida, where he advises for the Digital Marketing Professional Certificate Program. So after these messages, we'll be right back with Connected Voices.
This is the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. October can be a very good month to sign a contract to buy a home, because usually it's the month where you see the greatest share of homes going under contract with the price cut, but it's not clear if that's going to be the case this year, because buyer excitement about lower mortgage rates may be keeping demand high. Zillow says at this point it looks like nationwide home prices are up about 2.4% year on year, and currently about 25% of listings have price cuts, but it's a tougher market for buyers in some places. Home prices in Los Angeles are up more than 5% on the year, and only 21% of homes listed have price cuts. You might try in San Diego instead, because it could be a little bit easier for home buyers there. Home prices are up about 5% year on year, but 27% of homes listed in San Diego had a price cut. Riverside could be a little bit easier. Homes there are sitting on the market just a little bit longer. And that's the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
Welcome back to Connect Caribbean Report, to the segment Connected Voices here. And we have all our guests back, and Kieran closed out the segment speaking about the role of government. So I want to get Althea Wiggins' response to Kieran's comment there about government response to his experience there in Trinidad. And then we can open the floor and have a robust discussion on issues that we spoke about in the other segments. So Ambassador Althea, to say, what do you have to say to the question, the comment posed by Kieran in the closing moments in this talk?
So my response in terms of what Kieran said from government, because I know that we in Barbados have a direct relationship with China, and we have an ambassador there and so on. And I like the idea of what he just said in terms of the drink machine, where you can use various currencies. But in order for something like that to be innovative, whether from a governmental perspective or from an entrepreneurial perspective, I think that the same things that we were talking about earlier in terms of the e-commerce platforms would have to be in place in order for a business like that to be functional, whether even in a
Yeah.
hotel. But I think that it's an excellent, excellent suggestion, and I do believe that with time, we in Barbados, again from a governmental perspective, might be able to pursue those type of options. And you have to bring the population along with you. It's not just a case of wanting to do what other countries are doing. It is only when you travel either as an ambassador or on vacation and actually living in a different country from the one you live in, especially when you come from our small Caribbean territories, you see the options that are available to you out there in this whole new world. So the government will be willing to invest in those kind of innovative strategies, but you have to bring the population along with you first.
Exactly, but I want to get Chris Principe's input here. And Chris, what's your perspective on what Kieran said, and anything you wanted to add to John's comments in this earlier segment?
Yeah. The first thing is, Karen, good luck in Thailand. I've been traveling this for the last 30 years. And I think what they say in Thailand applies to the Caribbean, which is same, but different. And that's kind of the situation here. You know, we have many of the same kind of payment systems, but the way forward, I believe, will be more of the electronic transfers and electronic digital currencies using your phone rather than directly using the bank. I think what people really need today is a simple way to pay and get paid. And the banks, unfortunately, are not simple. And they have no intention of being simple. This is not their business. But we have a lot of great technical talent out there who are developing apps and developing ways of payment. Many of the platforms that you talk about now offer their own payment services. They offer their own debit cards and credit cards. So I think we're going to start seeing that gets easier. But I think you're spot on with education is the key. And we cannot expect that education to come from the government or the banks.
Exactly. Exactly, John. What would you say in terms of the mindset and around the whole issue of digital acceptance? What is the solution to change the mindset of Caribbean people?
Yeah.
What's your take there?
I think what happens is you have a multicultural issue that transcends the Caribbean. Actually, it's worldwide, and the expectations. And we had talked. Karan talked about what happens with the signals that politicians give. But the general sense is that we need to be in the 21st century. And I'm talking now about telecommunications and smart devices, AIDC, which is automatic identification data capture, the chips that are on the cards, the debit cards, and how they work. That's fundamentally different. The QR codes, the transactions. So if you take an emerging economy like Africa, they didn't have the telecommunications to be able to do the banking and things like that, but they had the cell capabilities. And so when you look at from 3G to 4G to 5G, that what's happening is that this is allowing the transfer of information in a cyber secure way. So the telecommunications that's coming in, that is way advanced that Karan is seeing in Thailand with the machines, just understand that machine has to understand that information. It has to have an agreement with the bank on what the exchange rate is. Is it immediate? And maybe sometimes that's the consumer that says when it gets transferred or monthly and how that happens. But the data necessary to do the interoperability is exists now today. And the people that are experts in digital markets and smart devices are way ahead of the regulatory reform that's necessary to accept that. And that's what we're going to have to see in the Caribbean as we drive the Connected Caribbean together, is what is the regulations that has to go in order to conform with the transfer of information, the transfer of the asset, and the transfer of the money.
Absolutely, John. Absolutely. Well, I want to bring Ambassador Thomas in here because Connect Caribbean Ferry Service, the company, is obviously introducing this e-commerce component and bringing businesses on board. And there's going to be a lot of trade from the Southern Caribbean to the Northern Caribbean. And I want you to give listeners and viewers the perspective of where you are and what the e-commerce, in light of the cross-border settlement payment solutions, how are you ready in Connect Caribbean as you're ready to launch and set sail? How are we addressing that e-commerce component in line with the cross-border payments solutions?
Okay, thank you for that question. In 3 phases, once we start the ferry service, we will be able to, within, say, an 18 months to 2-year period, from the time we start, be able to create a market in the region that has over 18 million people, that e-commerce can occur within that particular size of market, and goods be transported and get to your doorstep within 3 to 4 days. Some cases 24 hours. Now, what that allows, it allows a woman in Guyana to create beauty products and sell it to a woman in Trinidad, and she gets it within a day. Now, this is game changing for the region. I believe that Connect Caribbean is going to act as a catalyst. Our region, by nature, is not an early adopter when it comes to these technologies, but our region always responds when there's a catalyst. So I believe that Connect Caribbean is going to have a catalytic effect on the creation of fintech solutions. Now, we are in discussions with 2 different entities for fintech solutions that would work with the platform, but we're open to speak to more. So I believe that we will have a catalytic effect because now there is a market, now there's a reason, now there's a cause, and Caribbean people tend to respond more to tangibles. Okay, and so that I believe is going to it's going to help. It's not necessarily a good thing because those who lead bring intangibles into tangibles, and if you're only responding to tangibles, you're usually behind.
Well, we are certainly looking forward to when Connect Caribbean sets sails and everything is coalesced and we don't have these issues to deal with as trade increases across the Caribbean. But Kieran, you have a point you want to add as we wrap up this session. You can turn your mic on.
Sorry. We also need to think about what are we going to do with in terms of educating on the skill sets. Are the universities going to start offering courses in e-commerce, digital marketing that's up to standard to get us to that next level? And then also when it comes to the workforce, what are we doing with the labor laws? Because what's happening is that a lot of companies are keeping old, redundant processes, technology, and people because they can't get rid of these people because maybe the company is unionized and the union's fighting them on transforming the company. So a lot of companies can't even upgrade the personnel, the technology, and the skill sets. So we have to also address what are we teaching in the universities? Are we getting the right skill sets so that we can have a better skilled workforce? And then also, what are we doing with the companies? Are we able to reform the companies as well?
I have to jump in here with Karan, because when we talk about these multicultural things, this is systemic. This is not new, This is about our parents not teaching their children how to have a bank account, how to balance the budget, how to manage their money. And so now that we're going into this digital age, that education isn't available to the parents to actually teach. So it's a whole educational process that says, how do we all move the bar up? And so it's not just educating the children, it's educating the consumer, the parents, the elders in the community to feel safe. Because if we're not safe, then we're going to listen to the politicians who may not know or are looking at other ways of doing this. So this is tremendously important, this educational aspect.
I also want to add there that when people say education, they're always thinking about formal education. But
Right.
I do believe that all the billionaires who are billionaires out of e-commerce, Amazon, Mark Zuckerberg, the guy from China, a lot of these people did not have what we call formal education. A lot of what happens online, they learned it in their bedrooms, just lying down doing the business, and they became billionaires. So a lot of times we fool people that you have to get formal education in order to do a lot of these transactions. But I think that we need to reset and change that mindset.
Wow, we have so much to talk about. This cross-border settlement payments have brought up so many different factors and issues that the Caribbean needs to tackle. But we're coming back next week and broadening this topic, certainly because we've got so much to cover and so much to discuss, and the solutions that we want to see happen to make the Caribbean a more effective place to do business. And certainly with Connect Caribbean Ferry Service coming on board, certainly we want to be ready for the first quarter of next year. And so I really want to thank our guest, Kieran Rose, for joining us on Connect Caribbean Report. Thank you so much, Kieran. And our co-host, Ambassador Dr. Andre Thomas, Chairman and CEO of Pleon Group Inc. Thank you so very much for being here again. Also, Special Envoy Althea Wiggins, Special Envoy to Suriname and Guyana on behalf of the government of Barbados. Thank you, Chris Principe of Financial IT, and John Denon of the IC Group. We are certainly would wish we had more time to discuss this topic, but we'll be back next week to talk more on Connect Caribbean Report and the issues that could connect the issues with the Caribbean. And we're certainly looking to fully talk about these issues to bring the Caribbean up to a stage where we can do business globally. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you right back here next week, 1:30 p.m. AST on Connect Caribbean Report. Good evening, everyone.
With the Bloomberg Business of Sports Report, I'm Michael Barr. Toyota is returning to Formula One after 15 years as the Japanese automaker becomes a technical partner of American racing team Haas. There will be Toyota branding on the Haas cars starting at the U.S. Grand Prix in Austin, Texas, and the Auto Giants Racing Division will provide design, technical, and manufacturing services to the North Carolina-based team. In Britain, the man leading rugby's multi-million-pound brain injury lawsuits has been accused in court of pressuring a former England international to lie about having dementia. According to The Telegraph, a hearing raises questions about how solicitor Richard Boardman recruits potentially vulnerable ex-players to join his no-win, no-fee action. It emerged his law firm sued Will Green for thousands in legal and medical costs after he refused to sign up to the landmark litigation. With the Bloomberg Business of Sports Report, I'm Michael Barr, brought to you by Dell.